We're going to start in about a minute or two. Just going to give it about another minute or two. Just give people some more time to come in, and we're going to go ahead and start. Let's just go ahead and get into it. All right, peace and greetings to all the gods and goddesses on the path doing actual work, not just reading, not just talking about the shit, but actually doing it. All right, just going to go through a couple of quick announcements before we get to the topic we're going to discuss for this evening. Tomorrow, believe it or not, end of the month is here already. Tomorrow's the 27th. For those that have requested an invite, we have the ritual tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here in Fort Lauderdale. Please be on time. As you know, we start on time. We do lock the doors if you're not on time. So if you'll come tomorrow, just be on time. That's tomorrow. And then right around the corner from that is the event for next month. A lot more people contacting now. The bank's starting to fill up. which is the 25th to the 27th of October. That's the Journey of the Black Adept Conference #2. It's a 3-day event, different workshops, classes, rituals, presentations. If you're interested in attending that event, you want to register, shoot me an email. The email is in the description box of the video, or in all the videos. You see it at the bottom there. If you are coming to the event and you would like to do a presentation on a left-hand path or an occult topic, contact me, let me know. I think we have 2 spots left. After that, we are full. We won't have any more spots left. So if you are interested, space permitting, send me an email. And if there's still space, we can possibly get you on there. All right, that's the 25th to the 27th of October, which is next month. Just a reminder, I mentioned this on Tuesday. Due to I will be traveling next week. So there will be a show Tuesday, upcoming Tuesday, which is I believe the 1st, if I'm not mistaken? Yeah. Because it's only 30 days in September. So we will do a show on Tuesday the 1st. There will not be a show on Thursday, October 3rd, and Tuesday, October 8th. It's possible I might squeeze something in between there. I don't know. It just depends on the schedule. If not, we'll just stay on the regular schedule on the Tuesdays and Thursdays. But again, no show next Thursday, which is the 3rd, and no show next Tuesday, the 8th. I'll remind everybody again one more time on this upcoming Tuesday show. Before I will be traveling out of the state. I won't be here, so I won't have time to do any YouTube videos for those next 2 upcoming days on going into the first week in October. Also, don't forget, I know people always send emails about notifications. Subscribe to the channel, and if you want to get notifications, you also got to hit the notification bell. Just like any other YouTube channel you might subscribe to, if you hit the notification bell after you subscribe, you will get a notification. Anytime I upload a video or do a live like this, you'll get a notification. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. The more likes we get, it expands the channel. It broadens the channel on more search engines. It reaches more people. So feel free, please, to hit the like button. Very important for the channel. If you would like to donate to the channel, not mandatory, but always appreciated. The channel is monetized. You see the dollar symbol at the bottom of the chat. You can donate that way, or you can go to PayPal and use the same email address that you see in the description box. And the last, if you are interested in a spiritual consultation or a reading, send me an email, and please let me know your days and times that you are available in your email, and the time zone you live in. Very important, so we can schedule a time that works for both of us. I usually get to everybody as far as a reading or a consultation within 2 to 3 days. Specify which one you would prefer, a reading or a consultation. Very important. And then I will get back to you as quick as I can. Other than that, I think that covers all the basic parts of the announcement. Also to the NYC Black Flame 11 crew, I'm sure some of you are in here. I will get that link. We're going to have our next gathering video get together to start planning our next event in New York on the 9th, which is a Wednesday. So I'll send that link out as we get closer to that day. I know most of you have contacted me. For those that haven't, if you are part of the NYC Black Flame 11, you should get a link. Look for it for a day or 2. Oh, I forgot also about the Lilith class. I don't want to forget about that. I know we have already several people that have signed up for that. That's going to be on Saturday, November 2nd, from 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be doing a private class on Lilith. We'll be going in depth and detail and talking about some things we cannot talk about here, that I won't talk about openly. I just don't think it's appropriate. But we will be going into how to work with the Lilith energy. We'll be talking about working sex magic with Lilith, working with sigils. We will be talking about different techniques and various different spiritual practices of how to connect with the Lilith energy via the Apothic tree. or the Clepothic realm, and working with the void and darkness. We're going to go in depth with that on a personal level. That's going to be on Saturday, November 2nd, 3 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure I have some people that are signed up from the West Coast. Make sure you understand. I know sometimes we forget it's busy and we may not pay attention. Remember to adjust that time, okay? If you're, again, I'm just going to go through it. I know it's basic, but people forget it. If you're on the West Coast, that would be noon your time. If you are Mountain Time, that's 2 hours earlier. That would be 1 o'clock your time. All right. If you are Central Time Zone, that would be 2 o'clock your time, 3 o'clock on the East. So make sure you factor that in. Sometimes a little confusion on the time. That's why I make it clear: Eastern Standard Time. All right. I think now I covered everything. I'm almost certain of it. So we're going to continue our discussion. We started to get into dark alchemy for personal transformation. Well, alchemy in general is for transformation, as we know, but obviously there's different aspects and how you can utilize it. I'm more focusing on how we utilize it, or recommending how we should utilize it on the left-hand path, or the path of self-mastery. It's a great tool, as I said many times before in the past over the years, to do shadow work, right? We always talk about shadow work. It's a topic that comes up all the time on the show. And I've always said that's step one on this path. Dealing with the real you, the real self, not the illusionary you, not the person you want people to see you as or who you think you are, who you actually are. And sometimes when you do shadow work and you uncover that, it's not what you thought it was. One, as we know, as it says above the temple in Heliopolis, know thyself and thou shalt know the gods, right? You can't really proceed on any spiritual path if you don't know yourself. That's step one. All right. This is not a path about looking for some spook or spirit god somewhere out there in the sky. We don't worship anything. We're not looking to worship any deities in any culture. We're looking to become and embody what they represent. All that resides within us. All is mental. Mental is all. The universe is mental. First Hermetic principle of Tahuti. And we always understand that it all starts within the mind. But alchemy, when worked properly, and doing shadow work when connected to it, creates that harmony between the objective and the subjective realm. So it tends to happen on a lot of spiritual paths. People are either too subjective, they're so spiritual, they're so deep, and they're so heavy and spooky, and there's no harmony. There's a disconnect between the objective. And as I said before, I don't care what it is you claim to study or practice or master. If I don't see that harmony, if I don't see that connection in the here and now, and those results manifesting in your objective, then all it is it's for naught. It doesn't work. All right. You can't, again, walk around claiming to be so deep and heavy, but you ain't got a pot to piss in. You ain't got no money in your pocket. You know, you ain't got, you're not an example of the shit you talk about. And we used the example last time. We have a lot of people walking around that think they're Kemetic masters. And as I said, there's no broke pharaohs. I don't know any in the history about any broke pharaohs in ancient Egypt. You're going to have to show me one. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody show me one. But don't sit here and tell me you're so deep and you know all this and that. But yet, and again, no offense, you're stocking shelves at the grocery store, sleeping on your mom's couch, but you're a Kemetic master. That shows that there's a disconnect between your objective and subjective. Shadow work will bring you to that realization of reality. You know, there's something my mother used to say years ago: practice what you preach, right? That's a term I'm sure we've all heard in circles over the years. Practice what you preach. Are you about what you say, or did you just talk a good fucking game because you read a bunch of books? We have a lot of people that walk around regurgitating shit. That doesn't mean anything. It just means you're able to regurgitate shit. There's a lot of people that walk around, want to quote historical facts. Pointless. We're living in a day and time of here and now, real time, real results. If you're not getting real results, you ain't doing shit. Don't fool yourself. You might think you're doing shit. You might be stroking your ego and think because you read a bunch of books that you know something great. Pat yourself on the back. But us who are on this path, we want real results. We want to see ourselves evolve to the best person we can be spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. I call it the 5 Ps, or the 5 principles of the left-hand path to master, right? And they're in that order. And there's a reason why they're in that order. Okay, like I said, there ain't no such thing as a broke pharaoh. We gotta stop being broke. When did poverty and being poor get equated with being successful in spirituality? I don't know. Somebody needs to show me, that somewhere. So this is about harmony in all those areas. Alchemy assists in helping you transform to get to that level. Now, let me make this clear. It doesn't mean you're not going to have problems. You will. It doesn't mean you're not going to have challenges. Doesn't mean you're not going to have obstacles. But you're prepared to make order out of your chaos when you have a thorough understanding and awareness. Step one, knowledge of self and who and what you are. Once you have that, you can proceed forward and do everything. But if you start backwards and try to work your way back to that and put that at the bottom of the list, you'll fail. Trust me. All right? So what I want to talk about tonight, and I'm going to again go back, I'll go through the material that I have prepared, and then we'll go into the chat, and I'll go over your questions, your comments, and if I have time, maybe I'll open the phone lines later. The Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation by Dennis William Huck. It's a book I've mentioned over the last several years in videos throughout the years. As you can see, this thing is beat up. I've marked it up. It's a great book. People will always ask a question, Brother Beniti, what's a good book for me to start out with? This is one of them I mentioned in that list. If you really want to get on this path of self-mastery, if you really want to, do that shadow work and transform yourself into the best person you can be, this is a good read because it goes right in at the core. Now, is this technically what one would label a left-hand path book? No, but it doesn't need to be. But there's a lot of left-hand path concepts in it. Alchemy is alchemy. It can be applied on a multitude of levels. There are other things that by nature that are left-hand path, but are not classified left-hand path. We utilize alchemy on this path, just like there's some things on this path that people can adapt and adjust to other paths. But again, those are just titles. We don't need to get caught up in that shit. Those are just terms, right? And those are things that we as human beings need to grasp onto to feel comfortable. Humans need to put titles on things and put them in boxes and give them descriptions so they feel comfortable. As I said before, when you run into somebody, and I always get this, and this is how you run into somebody who lives in a world of fear and ignorance. I love when I get this question. Oh, whoa, do you believe in God? What are you? What the fuck? What are you? What are you? Are you Christian? No. This bothers them. I'm spiritual. What do you mean you're spiritual? You're Buddhist? See, that fear and ignorance comes up because people, out of their fear and ignorance and not knowing, they only feel comfortable when they can put you in a box and it makes them feel comfortable. That's what I'm talking about, okay? We're none of those things. Those are just titles. We're all of them simultaneously, and they are all of us. But remember, as it said in here, when we were reading from the Emerald Tablets, I think that was last week, and it's a powerful statement. When humans name God, by doing that, they create other gods, okay? Again, it shows our weakness in not being able to connect with the real self and not understanding the divine power that we possess and have lack of faith and trust in. Okay? That's really what it says. That's really what it communicates to, whether you're conscious of it or not. Because even though we might be on this path for some, we still have that self-doubt. We still have that not being sure. And sometimes subconsciously, we're still approaching it from a monotheistic mindset. Okay? So it's crazy. We don't want to do that. All right, so we're going to go over the 7 operations of alchemy. I'm going to go through them briefly. These are some of just the main key points
of how to utilize alchemy and apply it to your spiritual practice, your daily path, or your daily, methodology of what you use spiritually. Okay. Again, we focus on, or we gravitate towards trying to bring about the necessary change that we need. Okay. Now, one thing you always have to be conscious of when you do shadow work, when you do alchemy to transform yourself, sometimes people go into it with a preconceived notion. They think, this is why I'm doing it, this is what I need. And sometimes what you need and want is two totally different things. I've watched people do spiritual work and their world gets turned upside down because they think they're in need, of money, or they think they're in need of something materialistic, or they're focusing on looking for Mr. Right or Mrs. Right. And they start doing work, alchemy, shadow work, or they start doing work with archetypes that are road clearing energy. And then all of a sudden their personal life is a mess. Their career gets turned upside down. Their marriage goes in the dumps. Their family problems are heightened because that's the awareness they're being shown. Those are the areas they need to focus on. You might have thought, I need to come on this and work. We all need money. We all need to improve our financial condition. That's that's a gimme. But remember, if you have knowledge of self, all those things will come. So you must start there. So always be cautious of that when doing shadow work, when working with the void and the darkness, when working with some of these darker energies via alchemy. You are opening yourself up, okay? And you're making yourself a magnet to draw that energy towards you that needs to bring the change. Now, again, you sometimes learn in that process what you need and you want, you realize are two different things. Most people have that confused. And I simply tell people, you can do a simple checklist. Write a list of things down that you think you need, that are absolutely necessary. Do this. Write them down, everything you think you need. And I say the word think. Once you have that list complete, take a minute, pause. Now go back to that list from top to bottom and really be honest with yourself. Go through each one, ponder them for a moment or two or a minute or two, and say, is this an absolute necessary? Must I have this? Can I survive beyond all shadow of a doubt without this? You will start to see how you eliminate shit slowly but surely. And then it doesn't mean down the road you can't obtain them. Once you've eliminated what isn't absolutely necessary at the moment, then you can now focus your attention on what you must, what's mandatory. And it's that simple. Sometimes we make this shit more deep and complicated. We make it more heavier than it is. And sometimes it's just utilizing basic common sense, and we don't do it. We always want to make it deep and heavy. We always think we're the victim. Somebody's out to get me. I've been dealt a bad hand. Wah, cry, cry, cry. No. Step one on this path is taking responsibility for your actions and your successes and your failures. See, that's the one thing that differentiates this path from other paths. We don't blame other people when shit goes wrong. We don't blame other people for our failures. We don't blame other people for our problems, right? We accept sole responsibility for that. Why? Because of the choices and the decisions we make. Okay? If nobody put a gun to your head and forced you to do something, then you made that choice because you decided to make that choice. And sometimes that's a hard pill to swallow. It's easier to play the blame game, point the finger at others or something external, because that gives you a crutch to lean on and not take responsibility. And then you can play the blame game and the victim game. Then you can start looking for people's sympathy, right? I don't sympathize with nobody. I empathize to it to an extent, which is different, but I won't sympathize. Why? Because I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And as I said before, put on your big boy drawers and your big girl belly drawers and pull them up and be a grown-ass adult and deal with your bullshit. It's that simple, okay? This is not a path about coddling you. Let me hold you in my arms and rock you on my lap and tell you it's going to be okay. And this sure as fuck ain't a path where you're going to be told how special you are. That's the other problem we have with people. They want to be told how special they are. They're chosen. We got too many motherfuckers walking around. I had a dream. Kali spoke to me and told me the fuck out of here with that shit. Okay? You know, I'm an incarnation of Osiris. I had this dream and I was told that I'm an incarnation. No. What it's trying to show you is you need to reflect on what Osiris represents, and you need to look what areas in your life that connects with that need improvement. Because I mentioned to you guys, I always gave, yeah, brother B, I don't know why I feel this compelling energy to work with, Sekhmet. Well, if you feel a compelling energy to work with Sekhmet ain't no joke. Sekhmet, she is about deconstruction and reconstruction. She is a devourer. She destroys everything in her path in order to bring things anew. So that's telling me if you're drawn to work with Sekhmet, you got some shit, some blockages you got going on in your life. You got some shit you need to clear out. Don't get caught up in that illusionary bullshit. You're special. You see what people want to hear. You're a daughter of Sekhmet. See, Sekhmet, you're special. I don't do that shit to people. I'm not going to tell you that. You're no special than the average motherfucker walking the streets. And the thing is, people give themselves all these titles. I'm priest this, I'm master this, I'm comedic this, I'm herbal doctor, healer this. But you know what? When you're walking out in the street with everybody else, you just a regular motherfucker. That shit don't mean nothing. Okay? You fit in where everybody else fits in. The only place that holds weight is your little clique and your little circle. That's it. Them titles don't mean nothing. They don't mean shit to me. Okay? Never did, never will. The problem is when it comes to shit like that, people don't know how to fill positions. They let positions fill them. All right? So let's get to the 7 operations of alchemy, all right? Before I get sidetracked, all right? Alchemists believed that the universal formula contained in the Emerald Tablet was the basis for spiritual technology first introduced on the planet in ancient Egypt more than 10,000 years ago. The formula consists of 7 consecutive operations performed on the matter, whether it be of physical, listen to this. This is the inner depths of working with alchemy, whether it be physical, psychological, or spiritual nature. To guide us through this process, we are going to make use of a tool actually used by the alchemists. A meditative mandala first published in 1659 as an illustration for the book Azoth of the Philosophers by the legendary German alchemist Basil Valentine. The word Azoth is the title of one of the more arcane names for the one thing described in the Emerald Tablet. The A and the Z in the word relate to the Greek Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end of all things. Now that means symbolically, something, in order for something to begin, something has to end. In order for something to be built, something has to be destroyed. Okay? In order for something to be created or made anew, it has to be deconstructed. Okay? What we're talking about, we are the philosopher's stone is you. You also have to liken it to masonry. If you've ever, masonry or the Eastern Stars, if you've ever gone through an initiatic order, when you walk into the Masonic Lodge, I always tell brothers that have traveled the lodge, and I'm telling you this from being a master Mason for well over probably 15, 16 years now. Right when you walk into the lodge and you look in the east, you see the ashlar, right? The stone. You see the rough ashlar on one side and you see the smooth ashlar on the other side. That represents you. You come and you walk into the lodge as a rough ashlar, meaning with imperfections, things you need to fix about yourself to make yourself the best person you can be. And when you travel to the Master Mason degree in the Blue House, you become a smooth ashlar. You now have smoothed or perfected those things about yourself that need to be fixed. The God that you're working on is yourself. This also can be applied to alchemy. We understand when working alchemy, we got a lot of rough edges. We got a lot of shit we got to fix about ourselves. We might have a bad temper. We might lack patience. We might be horrible with managing money. We might not be the best father or mother. We might not, have good communication relationship with coworkers and friends, right? We might not have the best ability to contain our jealousy and our rage, which, by the way, can be channeled and be used in a productive way if you know what you're doing. Jealousy, rage, anger, and ego is not a bad thing as long as you don't let it consume you. Okay, I had a discussion with a brother today about this at lunch. Okay, and we were talking about rage and anger. And Set is a great archetype to work with that, because Set was able to use his rage and anger to keep Apep at bay and make order out of chaos, where Ra, who like most mortal people did, thought he could destroy it. He thought he could resist it, bury it, and act like it didn't exist. You can't destroy chaos. Chaos will always find a way to emerge. A real master makes order out of the chaos and recognizes it when it's coming over the horizon. Chaos always comes in the late night hours, right? That's the story of the journey of Ra through the underworld, in the evening hours to the rising of the sun. Well, Apep visits you every night when you sleep. When you can't fall asleep at night because you're worrying about paying bills. What's my next move? Or you're thinking about whatever problems you have, family problems, relationship problems, etc. That's chaos. And it always comes in those late night, early morning hours. That's Apep. The only way you can make order out of that is tapping into that Set energy and put it into perspective. So a real master knows they can't try to sweep chaos under the rug and think they're going to destroy it. They take that energy, manipulate it, reverse it, and make it work for them. That's how you make order out of chaos. Alchemy helps you and assists you in doing that. Okay? So we don't ever approach this with an unrealistic mindset. There's no snap your fingers, say a prayer, or do a mantra and it's all going to disappear. No. That chaos is embedded in you. You by nature are a chaotic being. You just don't want to accept that. That chaos that emerges is coming from you. You are manifesting it. You are bringing it into existence. All things emerged, as we say, from Leviathan or Leviathan, which is the continuity or principle of existence, right? And Tiamat, symbolically, we know emerged, or the primordial chaos emerged out of that Leviathan or Leviathan energy, however you want to pronounce it. What that's trying to show you, all things have root in that primordial chaos, that darkness, that void, or what we know as nothingness. If you didn't see the show I did Tuesday night on the wisdom of Adam Watts, She Is Black, go into that to understand existence. And go into that and see how fucked up we got it. And you're going to find out you're not as special as you thought you were. Your existence is a mere speck in the multiverses. You're not as deep and heavy as you thought you were. And what if you came to the realization, as we talked about on Tuesday night, that your existence really is not as impactful as you thought, but your fear and your ignorance, because we all fear making that transition, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. It's that fear of, what state do I slip into? What is that state when I make the transition? What am I going to feel like? Am I conscious like I am now? Do I see, feel, sense like I do now in human form? And as I said before, you really are fucked up if you think you have the answer to that question, okay? Because you don't. Step one, like AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, you got to admit you don't know. You got a problem. See, there's people that have been for years quoting the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It says this. In the Egyptian pyramid text, in the Coming Forth by Day, it says this. The opening of the mouth ceremony describes what happened. Those are all theories and concepts. The reality is, if you were real with yourself, you have no fucking idea what happens. If you were real, you would admit that to yourself. And that's one of the burning desires while you're on this path to learn. That's one of the things that keeps us eager and hungry for knowledge. It's the mysteries of the unknown. It's the mysteries of this thing called life and death. Why am I here? How did I get here? What's going to happen to me when I die? Where exactly am I going? And what's going to take place? Okay? Okay? That's the reality. And step one is, we've deceived ourselves in trying to think we got a lock on it. So we get involved in some culture, be it Kemetic, Ifa, Buddhism, which is cool, but we want to pretend like we have a lock on it out of our fear and ignorance. And we want to think, oh, I know now. The wise man knows he knows nothing. Don't mean he's ignorant. It means he's always open and willing, or she is always open and willing to learn. We just don't know. Keep it real. I've heard all the theories, from cultural to I've heard all the heavy breakdowns. We're cosmic dust, and when we go back into the ethers. It sounds good, but be real with yourself. You really don't fucking know. Okay, and if you think I've heard, listen, I've heard, believe me when I tell you, I've heard it all. I've heard every technical, scientific, metaphysical breakdown to every cultural breakdown. It's okay, they're theories, but we just don't know. But having said that, let me say this. Through your work, through your travels, you will have your own personal experience and understanding that. And I'm sure there's many people who have. I can only speak for myself. I have a thorough understanding of that based on my work. I'm comfortable with it. I've had my experiences with it. But it's pointless if we all sit here about our personal experiences because they're just that, they're personal. Because my personal experience isn't going to be the same as the next person's. And if I sat here and blabbed on like you got all these wannabe gurus telling you about all their subjective experiences, yeah, you know, I had this dream and I spoke to this deity and this happened, right? And I ramble on and on about it, and you just randomly accept that without confirming it and having your own experience, we've just started a brand new religion, okay? So I'm not interested in none of that shit. That's personal. See, people I've found on this path, and I'm not talking about the left-hand path of consciousness, okay, or being woke, okay, they tend to want to follow somebody because they want to be entertained and they want their ego stroked. I'll tell you, somebody sent me an email, and I mentioned this on the show a few shows back. How can I communicate with entertainers or famous people that have passed on? I don't know. I don't care. I'm not interested in communicating with entertainers and people that passed on. What that shows me is that your mind isn't in the right place. What you need to be fucking worrying about is, what can I do to fix shit about myself that's wrong? I'm not worried about communicating with Whitney Houston or whatever entertainers that passed on. If that's your thing, cool, power to you. I couldn't give two flying shits about that. That ain't doing nothing for me, okay? So I don't answer emails like that. I couldn't tell you how to do that. I don't care. Not interested. It's not on my to-do list. As I said earlier, make your list of things that are absolutely necessary and important. Well, guess what? I checked that one off a long time ago. It's not being important. This is not what this path is about. If you really want to see real results in your everyday life and see that transition in your family life, in your financial life, in your spiritual life, then this is where you want to be. But if you want to be entertained and you want your ego stroked and you want to follow somebody that's got charisma, and just because you like the way they speak and they stroke your ego and you feel good, then that's what you need to do. Find something that this ain't that. This is real deal truth. This is hardcore to the bone. And if you don't want it raw, door McGraw, as they say, this ain't the path for you. Keep it moving. You'll figure it out. Keep it moving. All right. All right. So the first operation of alchemy. Calcination, right? We always talk about the pineal gland being calcified, right? Calcination, or having a calcified pineal gland, kind of disconnects you to the awareness, to the consciousness that exists within you and without you, right? We talk about neuromelanin, right? I want to make this clear. We've had these discussions many times in the past with Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum on the show, who I plan to get back again soon. I should probably October, towards the middle to the end of the month, we'll get another roll call. We'll get a lot of these guests that we have on the show every couple of months back. I'm going to reach out to them. But we talk about the neuromelanin, right? We talk about that is the highway or the roadway that connects you to all of the consciousness that exists in the multiverses. And when that neuromelanin isn't activated and functioning right, you're disconnected, which in turn calcifies the pineal gland. And then we use the term being asleep, right? We can liken it to the Kemetic or the Egyptian concept of being in a mummified or a mummy state. And that's hence you hear the term awaken mummy, arise from your sleep. It's talking about spiritually. Most people who program themselves and they're indoctrinated with wrong information, they're indoctrinated on, by society, they're indoctrinated by media and really bad spiritual information. And I hate to say it, mainly you're dealing with, you're talking about a lot of religious people. Their pineal is not activated. It's not functioning at its capacity, where they're open and receptive to receiving, if you want to call it spiritual messages, higher forms of information, there's a really bad disconnect. And then there's a connection to food and the diet and the lack of exercise. And that's not talked about enough. And as I said before, you don't need to be in the gym 7 days a week pumping iron like a maniac, but you should be exercising consistently and having a reasonable diet. And I don't want to turn diet into a fucking religion, because no offense, no disrespect if you're a vegan, you got some fanatical vegans out there. They made that shit a fucking religion. And I've squashed that many times in the past. If you ain't growing your food from the ground yourself and cultivated and picking it from the ground, you're not really a vegan. Just because you go to Whole Foods or Fresh Market, that shit also is processed. That shit is injected with preservatives and chemicals to give it shelf life. That shit is injected with chemicals to give it truck life, to transport it from place to place. And if you saw the article of several months back about Whole Foods, they were getting a lot of that processed shit from China and other foreign countries. So you got a lot of people walking around with their nose up in there, I'm all organic. I eat all natural. And there was also, they were exposed for their so-called organic meat. So if you ain't raising the animals, slaying them themselves, it's not organic. If you ain't growing your own food from Mother Earth and plucking it from the ground in your own garden, you're not organic, okay? So let's not get into that whole debate. And you will find out eating some of that shit is worse than eating meat. But see, we don't want to talk about that. Remember, blood type has a lot to do with what type of diet you should have. And I don't want to get into that. I've talked about that many times over the years. There's not one particular diet that works for everybody. And anybody that tells you otherwise is a bumbling fucking idiot. Not everybody can be on a vegan diet, especially O-positive people and O-negative people. They're more aggressive by nature. They need more high levels of protein. And most by nature are carnivorous, okay? You'll find they have meat eaters. And everybody gets into this Kemetic and African. Well, why don't we talk about prior to Egypt? Why don't we talk about some of these primitive African tribes that were meat eaters? If you want to connect with Africa and everything is the motherland, not everybody in Africa was a damn vegan, okay? Let's keep it real. So calcination is step one, okay? Let's talk a little bit about this, all right? I'm going to go through a short section in here. Where did I go? Yeah. Okay. We're going to go through a couple of basic steps of how one first operation. That's all right. So it talks about, in psychological terms, this is known as the death of the profane, an operation on the saturnine elements of the personality that results in the death of ego and extinction of interest in the material world as the soul realizes the illusions it has embraced. In other words, calcination is the destruction of ego, but the destruction of the ego that gets your ass in trouble. Ego is not a completely bad thing. Ego is what keeps you, protects you, one. Ego is what keeps you motivated. Ego is what keeps you seeking for knowledge. That's good aspects of your ego. The bad aspects is when you just hate on people for no fucking reason, right? You can't control your mouth, right? You have a bad temper. When that consumes you, it's talking about the illusions that your soul has embraced, right? Back to what I was saying in the very beginning of the show, real shadow work is about stripping away the illusionary self. This is what it's talking about. That's step one to calcination, or understanding what it is and what it represents. In other words, it's destruction of the ego and all its defense mechanisms. These mechanisms usually take the form of self, perpetrating delusions and attachments to appearances and material possessions. In the worst person's basic instincts are constellated in it. What is that word? Constellated in his or her psyche and given power over the entire personality. In such cases, a person must endure the most horrendous hellfire that reduces one's life to shambles. That's what I said. Sometimes you get on this path, and this happens to a lot of people in the beginning. Their whole life gets turned upside down. Everything gets destroyed. And you got to be able to be prepared for that, because it's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when. And if you're prepared, you'll be ready to embrace it and deal with it. But if you're still caught up in the illusionary aspect of yourself, you're going to get consumed by it, because it's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be too much for you to bear. And one of two things happen. You either fight your way through it, and it's a beautiful thing when you do, or you fall and you crumble and you go back to doing the bullshit that you were doing prior. Trust me, I see it all the time. All right. Then it goes on to say, therefore, the intensity of the calcining fires varies between individuals, meaning the intensity of the change is going to vary. It's not going to be the same for everybody. All right. Though calcination always represents the beginning of a dark or a black stage in our lives when we are reduced to our most basic components, whether we are aware of it or not. And then the last part on calcination. For most of us, calcination is a natural process that takes place over time as we are gradually assaulted and overcome by the trials and tribulations of life. So what is this saying? Okay, this is basically saying this shit's going to happen whether or not. That's for sure. That's not the issue. So you can't prevent it from happening. You can't try to make it go away. That's not the approach. So we know that's going to happen. It's coming. It's coming. That's for sure. But what we're supposed to do when we get the awareness of that, we're supposed to prepare ourselves, right? But the alchemist, calcination is a controlled burn achieved by a deliberate surrender of our materiality through a variety of spiritual disciplines, okay, that ignite the passion in our souls. In all these instances, calcination is working with fire to burn away mental constructs and reveal a person's true essence. Need I say any more? So all the personal constructs, the false illusionary concepts you created about yourself have to be stripped away. And you have to get down to your personal true essence. That's step one. Is this a coincidence that this is the first step for Operation of Alchemy? Absolutely not. Okay? It's always going to start there. Knowledge of self. You must have that knowledge of self before you can proceed forward on any path. So it doesn't make sense if you wake up tomorrow and say, I want to be a Kemetic master. And you go research all the Egyptian texts and you go study about all the Egyptian deities and you sound deep, got it all figured out. You sound like you know your shit. But inside of here and here, there ain't nothing going on. There's no real change. That's not change. This is where it starts. Calcination, getting to the true essence of who and what you really are. Then what do we do after we've come to that realization? Now step two is dissolution. So now we've identified what's fucked up or what we need to work on. And in that awareness, you don't just uncover the fucked up things, you uncover your strengths too. And it gives you the tools and the weapons to also become even more potent and lethal at what you're already good at. So it's a double-edged sword. It works two ways. Okay? And real knowledge, as they say, is sweet to the tongue, but bitter to the belly. See, with knowledge comes responsibility. See, we don't accept that. And that's what I say. One of the concepts of being a god or goddess is being responsible. Taking responsibility for your actions and having that knowledge, which has root in the word to know. With that to know or knowledge comes responsibility. What responsibility are you talking about, Beniti? Real simple. Responsibility to act on what you know. Step one for yourself. I'm not talking about to go out in the world on a save the world mission. That shit don't work. Because you can't save the world until you save yourself first. You're no good to nobody if you're not right yourself. That's why shit goes amok. That's why these groups and cliques don't work. That's why these organizations that are preaching this illusionary concept, we must all come together. We must become one. Never gonna happen. Why? Because by nature we are tribal. There's tribal blood that runs through our veins. That's why you get in the room with somebody sometimes you never met them before, but you just don't vibe with them. You don't understand it. I don't know this motherfucker. Why do I not like this motherfucker? That's that tribal blood running through your veins that you can't quite figure out. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's just your warring tribal blood was warring with that individual's warring tribal blood, and you just don't vibe with him. That's all. Or her. It's that simple. And this is why when shit always tries to come together, why do you think in a lot of these groups it always crumbles? It's always money problems, jealousy, envy. This one's hating on that one. And the women, I got to keep it real. Yes, us men can be petty, but one thing we are when we're men, when we don't like a motherfucker, I know when I don't like somebody, I just don't fuck with them. Women are on a whole nother level. When you motherfuckers don't like somebody, shit, you guys will hang out with people you hate and talk about them and shit. I just don't get that. You'll be friends in their face, but I do get it in a sense. Let me take that back. You guys are slick like that. We as men, we don't care to bother with that. That's a whole nother story. But the whole point being is we have that tribal blood that runs through our veins. That type of peace is an illusion. It doesn't exist. And society has been promoting that beginning in the foundations of civilization. And they've been promoting it forever and for eons. And all you see is war and destruction and hate all across the planet as we speak right now. And usually there's a hidden agenda of religion and God behind it. Because that's usually what they mask it behind. Because there's a personal agenda. So step one on this path, we must be able to get ourselves in order first. And we always have the ability to be in complete control of our immediate surroundings and environment. Nobody can mess that up unless you allow them to. It don't mean that things going on in the world don't have some bearing or effect. That's not what I'm saying. But an adept starts with themselves, he or her, their immediate environment and surroundings. If that's fucked up, you have to take responsibility for that. Okay? Nobody else. Okay? So step 2 is dissolution. We've now identified. What do we do now proceeding forward? Operation 2. Okay? Dissolving the ashes of calcination, okay, in water or acid is what the alchemists meant by dissolution. Psychologically, this is the further breaking down of artificial art. Listen to this. So we know there's literal alchemy, there's operative and speculative alchemy, like there's operative and speculative masonry. We're using the philosopher's stone and alchemy, and we're transitioning it into magic, spiritual systems, and how we can use it on this path. We're alchemists in that sense, right? We're all alchemists or scientists or magicians. What do you think the great Heka magicians of ancient Egypt were? That's the greatest power Egypt people need to be teaching and talking about. Not this idol worshiping bullshit that everybody's talking. Back in the day, we were kings and queens in Egypt. Who gives a shit? What is that doing for me in 2019? I always said we got an issue. People have a disease called back in the day-itis, where they like to sit around and talk about the good old days. Well, if you can't bring any of that shit from way back then and bring it into real time and make it work for you in 2019 and beyond, it's useless, people. And I'm done with those days. I gave up those days years ago. I don't sit around having reminisce fests because it's pointless to me. That's for people that don't want to be successful. That's for people who are looking for an excuse why they're failing. I don't do that. I don't look for a crutch to lean on and find an excuse why my life is a mess or why I can't be successful. We don't do that, people. All right? So listen to this. This is the further breaking down of the artificial structures of the psyche by immersion in the unconscious or the irrational and rejected parts of our minds. Okay? Its mother is the moon, says the tablet, referring to the activation of lunar consciousness. At this stage, and the first application of the water element described in the tablet, just as calcination works on the mind and ego to destroy the deceptions and impure thoughts, so does dissolution work on the heart. Now we know the heart chakra is where you get all your power from as an adept or a magician. It's where all your strength comes from. When you're working with the serpent or the dragon or the kundalini energy, its power manifests in the ansata, the heart chakra, right? When you're working your magic and you're doing your invocations and you're trying to put your passion and power behind your invocations or your evocations, it comes from the heart chakra, okay? It's one of the most important chakras, not talked about enough, because everybody's focused on the pineal being activated, which, yes, and the crown chakra being open, which most people ain't even nowhere near that, okay? You must start at the root and work your way up. But the heart chakra is that facilitates all that. It facilitates the lower and the upper chakras, symbolically, for lack of a better word. It's where you get your passion from, your drive, your focus. And when the heart chakra is activated, and it knows and can identify what we call divine ishq, which is just an Eastern philosophy term for love, real love. I'm not talking about illusionary love. I'm not talking about love of a car, love of a piece of jewelry, love of a child, love of a spouse, love of having sex and materialistic wealth. That's not love. Divine ishq. Divine ishq is a feeling that resonates within you. It could be as simple as sitting on a beach, listening to the waves, seeing the sun rise over the horizon, symbolic. You know, the sun doesn't rise. Yeah, we get it. Or setting. Or sometimes it could be just in a serene setting in nature and hearing the birds and the wind and the trees blow. I don't want to sound fluffy bunny, but you get my point. Sometimes it's just a good feeling of maybe doing good or helping for others and not expecting something in return, right? That's divine ishq. Don't confuse that shit for physical and materialistic love. That's what it's talking about. Destroying those false, illusionary, materialistic things, right? And every great enlightened master tried, whether it's Zen Buddhism, whatever it might be, was always trying to teach the student about divine ishq, divine love. What is divine love? It's love that's not corrupt. And sometimes we take for granted those things that we have at our disposal every day, such as water. If we didn't have water, we know we'd have a serious problem. The ancient Egyptians knew that. If the sun ceased to exist and didn't shine, life as we know it would cease to exist. So they looked at the sun as a symbol of that eternity, that connection with the micro and the macrocosm, with nature within creation and nature within us. It's not that they worship the sun, because people that don't understand the teachings get confused. These are all aspects. And yes, whether people understand it or not, they think on the left-hand path. We don't study this stuff in Mastery. We do. That's the core of these teachings. That's part of removing the illusionary aspect of the bullshit we've been indoctrinated with. See, people don't think we study this. We do. Remember, the most powerful archetype on the left-hand path, Lucifer, embodies light and darkness simultaneously. Light represents the knowledge and the intellect, or the Sitra Akra, the other side, represents those things in the void of darkness that go to a whole nother level. We master both of those things, the void, the darkness, and the light and the intellect. The problem is you got some people that just want to be all light, and everything is knowledge, peace, and love, brother, peace, unity, one love, peace, my sister. No. I just saw a video, and you guys should go watch it. I was watching a video last night, and just Google it. DMX just recently did an interview. It was just published like 2 or 3 days ago. And it's powerful. And he's talking about in the video, he's going over, you know, the history of a lot of the classic songs. And look, I've always said during that time, late 90s, early 2000s, DMX is the man, regardless of what he's been through. And obviously he's been through a lot of shit with drugs, and everybody that's familiar with him knows his personal history. And obviously looking at the video, you can see now he looks like he's in a lot better place. He looks good physically. He sounds good physically. And I know he's recently been on the scene doing more work, which I'm glad to hear that. Anybody that can go through that type of stuff and rebound. But he said something that made so much sense. He said, people got it twisted. Like, he makes music because there's certain emotions that motivated and govern the music. And he said something that stuck with me. Who the fuck wants to be happy all the time? That's just not practical. Think about that. That sounds negative on the surface, but think about it. He said, who wants to be happy all the time? If I'm riding to a song, listening to music, and it's inciting and activating certain emotions within me, then I'm connecting to something personal, and that's what it is. You could take that same concept and apply it to this. Okay? Think about it. If everybody was just, you know, smiles and roses, it's impossible to be happy all the time. What that basically says is learning how to express and facilitate that energy. And watch him when he says it. When he says it, you can see it's coming from a place of wisdom. Think about it. Who wants to be happy all the fucking time? Think about that for a minute. Okay? It's fake. It's phony. It's not real. It also says there are times when you have to express that more aggressive energy. It's just knowing how to do it. And he was saying, I do it in the music. It's just who I am. And if you go look about his history in the music he makes, that was his way of expressing it. Doesn't mean everything he talked about on records he actually carried out and did. Absolutely not. Okay? This is the reality. And I watched that shit and I said, that's a motherfucker that's gaining wisdom. After all he's been through. And look, yeah, call it what you want. He did some crazy shit. You know, we know the history. We know his personal issues he's battled. But give the man credit. He's still here. And he probably should be dead from some of the crazy shit that he did. But that's part of going into the darkness. That's part of embracing the shadow you. That's part of coming to the realization either it's gonna consume you or you're gonna come out trial by the fire and the flames, and you're gonna become out anew, polished. So I watched that video and it was like a 9-minute video, but I got a lot out of it. I said, the people can learn from this shit. But most people won't. They won't look at it on that level. They just look at it as some interview. All right. So dissolution works on the heart and the id to release buried emotions that conceal or distort our true nature. And that's what I say. Shadow work's going to uncover the real you. And it's not always pleasant. Okay? Basically, this means showing our pain and revealing our wounds, which is where the gold of our being is often trapped, but still intact. It is for the most part an unconscious process, which our conscious mind allows the surfacing of previously buried material. So you could bury it, it's going to come to the surface. I've been saying that for years. So you can think you can pretend to be who you want to be. You can front and try to present yourself in this fake illusionary self you want other people to see you as. You're so cool, you're so deep, you're this and you're that. But you know what winds up happening in the end? The real you is going to come out one way or the other. That's it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And if you're suppressing it, if you're avoiding it and resisting it, you're just going to make your journey a lot more harder, tougher. All right? Dissolution is working with the water element by opening our personal floodgates and generating new energy from the waters held back. It results in a wonderfully flowing presence that is free of inhibitions, prejudgments, and restrictive mental structures. Indoctrination, people. You must rid yourself of all dogmas, faith, and belief systems to emerge successfully on this path. Okay? All right, so that stuff has to be done. It's not an option, okay? It results in a wonderfully flowing presence that is free of inhibition, judgments, and restrictive mental structures. That which is within us is now close to the surface and freely expressed, all right? That's dissolution. Let's go to separation, which is an important one, all right? Alchemical separation is the isolation of the components of dissolution by filtration or settling and the discarding of ungenuine or unworthy material. So now we're at the point where we now have identified, we're doing the work, and we're now removing shit from ourselves that need to be removed so we can transform it into what we're capable of being. Now we're getting to the meat now, all right? This is the rediscovery of our essence and the reclaiming of dream and visionary gold previously rejected by the masculine or rational part of our minds. It is for the most part a conscious process in which we review formerly unconscious material and decide what to discard and what to reintegrate into our personality. So now we have the awareness of what we need to eliminate or something we need to reconstruct. We don't need to eliminate it altogether, but we need to reintegrate it into our personality. Maybe we were using it wrong. Maybe we thought we knew something, a spiritual practice, an understanding of something, and now we've come into a greater understanding of it. So now we need to reintegrate that into our consciousness to make it work for us, because we came to the realization it's not quite what we thought it was, right? And now we see it for what it is. So now we can reintegrate it into our consciousness, okay? Much of this shadowy material, right, shadow work, consists of things we are ashamed of. How many of us don't want to face those things that we're ashamed of, right? Or have been taught to hide away by our parents, pastors, and teachers. Maybe it's our sexuality, right? Or lack thereof. Maybe it's a habit that we're not proud of, that we haven't faced. Maybe it's a personality or a character flaw, right? Or maybe it's a thing in a habitual habit that we do that we know is destructive to ourselves, but we keep it locked and suppressed and hidden, and we're embarrassed of it. This is what shadow work uncovers. Maybe it's something really painful. I'm going to switch it to something even more. It could be being the victim of sexual abuse. It could be being a victim of rape, right? Because sad thing I've learned over the years, most people that have either been in those situations, sad to say, blame themselves for it. And never really have moved on and taken the time to understand that it was beyond their fault. That's what this is also talking about here. It can be that critical. Maybe it was an accident that happened. Accident, buddy lost their lives. People take responsibility for that, and they've never moved on or passed on from it. So now we're dealing with traumas that you might be ashamed of. And one thing I've found out over the years in working with clients, and it's blown me away the last 15, 20 years, I'm finding out 1 out of every 3 or 4 people I run into have either been raped or sexually abused, male and female. It's crazy. Now, I'm speaking this, I've never been a victim of that, so I can only understand it to an extent. But in that field, I've come across a bunch of people that deal with this trauma, and it's plagued them for many years, where it's prevented them from evolving or becoming the best person that they can be. And it's just, it amazes me how very common it is. And the sad thing about it is, it's usually by a direct family member, which is even more disturbing. It's usually 9 out of 10 times, not by a stranger, not by a random incident. It's usually 9 out of 10 times, 90% of the time, by a direct family member or friend or somebody that the person knew. That's what this is talking about. That comes to the surface. You know, you have to be able to deal with that and move forward. If not, it stays embedded in the subconscious and it becomes a crutch that's crippling to your growth and spirituality. And you have to face it by putting it into its correct perspective. One, it might be as simple as looking at yourself in the mirror and say, it was not my fault. First of all, there's no justification for a grown-ass adult first of all, I can't phantom. It's a whole nother story. I guess that's coming from the parent side of me. Okay. And look, this might come off the wrong way. It might come off as pure rage and anger. If that ever happened to one of my kids and I knew, let me just say, I'll leave it there. We don't want to even go there. Maybe that's the parent in me, but I'm comfortable with taking a stance on that. And I'm comfortable on my approach on that. But there's no justification for holding any child responsible for something that they don't understand. And sometimes, I've dealt with clients who were abused when they were children. I'm talking about 8, 9, 10, 11, and sometimes even younger. And they, for years, have been carrying around the guilt that it was their fault. like they did something to bring it on themselves. That's usually preyed upon or forced upon them by usually the abuser. And it's a subconscious mind fuckery. And sometimes the way to, now let me say this. It doesn't mean, I'm not saying that ever goes away, because it never will go away. But you can put it into perspective where you can embrace it, as far as putting it into perspective and being able to move forward. And sometimes it's as easy as just saying, looking at yourself in the mirror intently and saying, that was not my fault. And sometimes it's hard just to do that. But sometimes doing this work here brings that painful stuff to the surface that must be addressed. If you're not ready to go that level, this ain't the path for you. I'll tell you that. It's not the path for you, unfortunately. And I don't want to lie and act like that stuff doesn't come on. Because when you do the work with the void and the darkness, when you work with the Klepotic, when you work with energies like Lilith, Lucifer, Samael, all these darker energies, Arachne, which we're getting ready to do tomorrow night, the spider goddess, Hecate, when you work with all this, be prepared, somebody. When you work with all this, be prepared to address and deal with that stuff, okay? You must be prepared. And all I can say is I'm not exaggerating that on any level. That's the real, all right? All right. To summarize, separation is a letting go of the self-inflicted, here's what we were just talking about, restraints to our true nature and saving the hidden essence, which becomes the subject of the following operations. That essence is made of the best parts of our spirit and soul, our mind, and our heart. The wind carried it in its belly, says the tablet. And this stage is the first application of the air element. Separation delivers the retrieval spiritual essence safely through the processes of calcination and dissolution to its first incarnation, which is the earthly conjunction. All right? So that's dealing with getting to the meat of it, right? Separation. So we are able now to separate, to remove from ourselves what needs to be removed and what needs to be, most importantly, reintegrated. It's no different than saying deconstruction and reconstruction. Okay? So step 4, conjunction. This is our next or fourth step of alchemy or operations of alchemy. On the personal level, conjunction is the empowerment is the empowerment of our true selves, the union of both the masculine and feminine sides of our personalities into a new belief system that must still be nurtured to survive. The alchemists described this fragile child as a crude hermaphrodite. But as it grows in strength, the child of the philosophers solidifies into the lesser stone, a state of consciousness in which the initiated is able to clearly discern what needs to be done to achieve lasting enlightenment. For many, the conjunction experience is felt as an increase in the intuitive insight, what the Egyptian alchemists called the birth of the intelligence of the heart. The newly found faculty produces a sense of reality superior to either thought or feeling, as if to herald the viability of this new state of being. Synchronicities begin to occur that confirm the alchemist is on the right track. So now when you conjoin all this stuff, now you're starting to see the results. Now you're starting to see the fruit of your work. You're starting to see it manifest, right? Conjunction can be seen as the creation of intuitive overself and the achievement of what Carl Jung named individuation, in which the fragmented self is reunified into the original whole. The creation of this harmonious whole person means we have risen as far as we can on the earthly plane. Its nurses the earth. It's how important the stage is described in the tablet, and it represents the first application of the earth element in the work. All right? That's conjunction. This one's a little more complex, number 5. Fermentation. The seventh one is my favorite, but we'll get into that when we get into it. The overwhelming, now we're in step 5, fermentation. The overwhelming power from the above can take on many forms. It can be a mystical experience, religious awakening, near-death experience, psychic vision, paranormal encounter, the achievement of grace in sports, or simply a winning attitude in business. Fermentation is achieved through a number of activities that can include deep meditation, intense prayer, strong desire, breakdown of the personality, transpersonal therapy, activated imagination, continuous contemplation on even the shamanic use of psychotropic or psychedelic drugs. In all cases, however, fermentation is accomplished through what alchemists call the true imagination, a state of consciousness in which mental images or visions seem more representative of reality than anything we can see with our eyes. It is as if our consciousness has left the bounds of matter and exists outside of our bodies, and everything we experience in this state is more real and more truthful than the everyday world. The transcendental phase is a final initiation of the personality into a new milieu that begins with the putrefaction of the hermaphroditic child from the conjunction resulting in its death in the below the world of illusion and its resurrection in the above and in the light of truth. What is this talking about? This is talking about what I talk about all the time, becoming like a Baphomet, right? What's happening now to become like a Baphomet, symbolic of what Baphomet represents, you are now the masculine and feminine, right? Baphomet is androgynous by nature, the goat face of a man, the breasts of a female. Everything that the 5th step of alchemy is talking about, fermentation, you can see represented in what Baphomet represents. You're seeing the harmony, the as above, so below, the as within, the so without, the masculine and feminine forces, all of the elements, the activated pineal gland that you see Baphomet, right? When you look at his pineal, the fire emerging from the pineal, right? All of these elements perched on the earth, right? We know a goat likes to be high on the mountain looking down on its subject. That represents mastering something, controlling something, being the god or the ruler over it. All of those things that are embedded in Baphomet can be likened to the 5th step of alchemy, fermentation. That's what this is talking about. This is how on an occult level we can see this. So this is what I mean. I've done videos on that. Stop talking and become like a Baphomet, right? In the sense of what Baphomet represents. When you are now on the path and becoming like a Baphomet, you are now mastering the 5th step of alchemy, fermentation. Okay? This is where you're at. This is what you're doing. Because now you're experiencing it. Not only are you seeing the results, but you're experiencing it on a daily basis. It's emanating in your everyday life. This is what I mean, what separates us who do the work, who are getting the results, as opposed to those who just read a bunch of books on Egypt and walk around, I'm Ra, Seti Hotep. I'm Amun Ra Ankh, Seti Ahmed Mohammed. Then we got motherfuckers combining Islamic and Egyptian names. And they're walking around with this false sense of illusion and ego. And you can smell them from a mile away. They all smell like a bunch of bullshit. And they all think they're so deep and heavy. You know, hey, brother, what do you know about the Metroneta? I don't care. I don't give a fuck to know about no Metroneta. Okay? I'm not going to waste my time and energy arguing whether it was deciphered or not. Because my next question would be, how's that going to help me in 2019? It's a nice little tidbit. It's a nice little knowledge and information to have. Ain't going to put no money in my pocket. Ain't going to fix my life situation. It ain't going to correct my character flaws. And it goes to show where the mind is, where the focus is. That's what separates from what we do. So you're now becoming like a Baphomet in step 5. You're seeing the results. You're living the results. You're experiencing on a daily basis. You have become like Baphomet. Working with the Clepoptic tree, we know the 2 governing Samael / Lucifer and Lilith. They facilitate the energy of the Clepoptic, right? Lilith takes you to the Sitra Aqua, to the other side. She is that 11 Klipothic, where she grabs you by the hand. That was my experience, being grabbed by the hand by Lilith and taken into the void and the darkness. And we're going to go into that in the personal class, and that is a fucking crazy experience. And Lilith only reaches out to those who she sees lust for desire, or has a lust and a desire for knowledge and understanding. Not just sexual lust, because the knowledge and the desire or the lust for that knowledge can be transitioned into the sexual energy, which we will talk about in that class. But the lust that Lilith feeds off of is also the lust that the initiate or the adept has to learn. Once she sees, or once you understand that Lilith portion of your psyche is activated, okay? You've put it out there. Now you're ready to go to the Citra Aqua, the other side, make the transition, and go and take a leap into the void and darkness where existence just is. Nothing governs it. There is no boundaries on it. There is no beginning and end. There is no rules, regulations. There is no personal dogmas, morals, and ideologies and philosophies that your mind has constructed in the illusionary world that operate and govern there. It doesn't exist. So you must be willing to jump into that void and leap and be prepared to embrace whatever it brings. That's dealing with pure primordial chaos. Okay? That's what the Klipothic and the realm of the void and darkness is about. Tomorrow night in our ritual, we will bridge the gap between the above and the below. That's what Arachne, the spider goddess, does. She connects both of those realms. The ritual will be constructed and designed working with those energies. And it's very emotional. And everybody responds differently. You get moments of joy, moments of happiness, sadness, intense moments of pain, emotional pain. But when you bottle it all up, it's a beautiful thing, because what you get out of it after you shake it all up is the real you. Now the real you can emerge. Now the real you is coming forward. And you either embrace it or you suppress it, right? So that's the fifth stage, fermentation, right? You also see that term used in wine, right? Fermented grapes, right? In order for a wine to become fine, what does it must do? It must ferment for a long period of time, right? Not a coincidence, huh? So you liken yourself to a fine wine. It has to ferment. Serious work, time, and energy has to be put into it. All right? 2 more steps. And then I will go through the chat and take your questions and your comments. We're going to get through. We got 2 more, and then we're done. Step 6, distillation, right? We talk about distilled water, right? I'm going to use metaphors. Distilled water is the process of purifying it, removing all the impurities out of it, right? Use that metaphor, and we're going to go a little bit deeper. So the 6th operation of alchemy is distillation, right? What is this? What is this talking about? Chemically, distillation is boiling and condensation of the fermented solution to increase its purity, right? Why this is known as the white stage of alchemy. Psychologically, this agitation and sublimation of psychic forces is necessary to ensure that no impurities from the ego or id are incorporated into the next and final process. So now you're doing that final filtering out process. You are now, it's like you're going through your checklist. You're making sure you're clear on what you need to reintegrate into your personality and what you need to remove. And now you're taking steps to make sure you don't bring back those things, those bad habits, those certain ways of doing things that were hindering you. You're assuring now, basically, long story short, in left-hand path terms, you are now mastering your chaos. You're making order out of your chaos now. This is what it means. Dissolution is what it means when it says making order out of chaos. Now you're at that stage, okay? Now you're there, okay? Let's continue. It rises from the earth to the heavens and descends again to the earth. It is how the tablet, as above, so below. It is how the tablet describes the operation which represents the second or higher application of the water element in the tablet. The alchemist thought of this phase as working with the heavenly element Mercury to extract and refashion the metals. The ferment, the soft amalgam, or balsam resulting from this operation must be hardened into a stone before it can be made permanent. And the final phase of distillation is a sublimation of which the vapor turns solid or the spirit is made corporal. And then it finishes with this. For the modern adept, distillation consists of a variety of introspective techniques that attempt to raise the content of the psyche to the highest level possible. So now you're not worshiping God or goddess or archetype. You are embodying or becoming the archetype or the god. You're not worshiping Shango, you're becoming a Shango. You're not worshiping Oshun, you are becoming like an Oshun. You're becoming like an Osiris, a Set, a Nephthys, an Asset. That's the difference. Where on other paths, they're trying to worship and they're looking at it external and they put themselves in an inferiority aspect to that which they are on an equal level to. Okay? So now you're at that. Here's the icing. Watch this. Okay? Free from all sentimentality and emotions, cut off even from one's personal identity. So now this individuality or illusion of it, not individuality as far as the isolated consciousness, which tapped you into that awareness, because to understand the one mind or the one thing, you must first separate. You must understand your individuality and tap into your isolated consciousness, because watch what this says. Distillation takes us into the refined realm of the one mind, where base emotions cannot follow. It is a purification of the unborn self, all that we truly are and can be spiritually. When the soul reaches the perfection of the spirit, completely purified from passion, and is joined and commingled with the Holy Spirit. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. And the 4th century Coptic mystic, Macarius, then it becomes all light or intellect, knowledge, all exaltation and heartfelt love, right? That's step 6, distillation. Which brings us to the most important one, step 7, coagulation. You see this inscribed on the forearm of Baphomet, right? People, this shit is all connected, right? And that's why I said Baphomet is a symbol. For all those that are ignorant, that are not on this path, that think it's a deity, it's some satanic, demonic entity that the Knights of Templar worship, you're a space cadet. You're spooky as hell. Stop reading shit on the internet. Stop watching YouTube conspiracy theory videos because it's fucking your mind up. I have so many people over the years that have come to me and say, oh, the Knights of Templar, in secret, in their lodges, worship Baphomet. So my first question I ask the person, and they get pissed off, but this is how my mind operates and everything. So the first thing I say to them, brother, are you a Knights of Templar? No. Second question, so how do you know this? Well, I saw this video on YouTube. Oh, I was at this lecture. Oh, I read in this book. Okay, you were at this lecture. Who was the speaker? Such and such. Brother, are they a Knights of Templar? No. Where did they get it from? I can go on. Oh, I saw this video. Who did the video? Such and such. Are they a Knights of Templar? No. So where did they get it from? You don't know. Okay. I read it in this book. Great. Who was the author, brother? Okay. Did they come out straight and say they were a Knights of Templar? No, they weren't. So basically, we got a bunch of conspiracy there. And if you're not a Knights of Templar, you don't know. That's about as valid as when they put stupid shit on the internet, like Beyonce and Jay-Z are part of the Illuminati. I love that one. That kills me. Believe me, they're not. Okay? Where are you getting this shit from? What that shows is you are a weaker-minded individual who is part of the experiment and not controlling it. That stuff is put out there for weak-minded individuals, and the people that put it out there do it intentionally because they find idiots like that who can keep that information spread and poison the minds of others by continuously spreading it. I laugh when people send me videos like that. It's comical. And I'm not laughing at the video, I'm laughing at the person that sent it to me. Because it goes to show me how weak-minded and easily they can be manipulated. So if you believe in that stuff, it means you don't really understand what's going on, right? Step 7, coagulation, which really in essence of what this whole transformation thing is from a Baphomet perspective. The seventh ray, as they call it, the seventh circle shows an androgynous youth, right? Watch this. I love this shit, man. Emerging from an open grave with the Latin word lapidem. Going to bed, buddy? What's the matter with you here? Meaning the stone next to it. This is the stage of coagulation in which the fermented soul child of the conjunction is fused with the sublimated spiritual presence of distillation. The resurrection of the soul is accomplished by bringing together only the purest essence of our bodies or matter into the light of meditation and the reflection on life's experiences. Now you're getting the actual step-by-step process of what it means to become like a Baphomet and what Baphomet represents. And notice it said an androgynous child emerges, one that's in tune with the masculine and feminine energy, not just on a physical level, on a spiritual level. Okay? It becomes a permanent and always available state of consciousness that embodies the highest aspirations and evolution of mind and sensed as a new strength of personality to survive any onslaught. So now you're prepared with the tools to do battle with chaos when chaos comes. Now you're like Set, who had the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding to slay a pep or keep a pep at bay, not destroy, to slay and resurrect that a pep or chaotic energy in a beneficial factor. So now we have become not wondering, right? In the mystical sense, this returns again to earth as the realization of eternal spirit body, often confirmed as an out-of-body experience. The alchemists refer to this mobile state of consciousness as the philosopher's stone or the greatest stone, which is achieved first only in a hypnagogic and semi-dream states and eventually becomes solidified light that seems more real than our physical body. So now you start to have enhanced spiritual experiences, astral traveling, dreams, visions, etc. But stay grounded, people. Don't go to spooky Cadetville. Make sure you have the harmony and the understanding between the objective and the subjective. Don't become a space cadet, because it can create a serious problem. All right? The alchemists referred to this mobile state of consciousness as the philosopher's stone or the greatest stone, right? Then it goes on. Now the alchemist has entered the final red stage and can use this wonderful presence to transform the reality of everything around him or her. The alchemist promised that from this stone would flow the red elixir that heals all wounds and cures all diseases. In other words, coagulation incarnates and releases the ultimate material of the soul that the Emerald Tablet described as the glory of the whole universe. Literally, according to the tablet, it is the greatest force of all powers because it overcomes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. Coagulation is the second or higher application of the elements of air and earth. And you see this in the Baphomet symbol, right? In the tablet, and it results in a union of spirit with matter, as above, so below, as within, so without. At this stage, the alchemists felt they were working with the heavenly element of salt, right? Life is in the salt, right? However, there is yet another step in our mandala, which is the 8th step mentioned by Hermes and other mystics. It is depicted in the Azoth drawing as the return to the first ray of salt, and Saturn that points to the cubic stone. For at the end of the alchemical process, we arrive back where we started from, only now empowered and embodied an eternal stone that represents an incorruptible higher consciousness. So now you are on the path to actually really knowing something. Okay, I got one more little short section. Now we're on the path to actually starting to know something. There's one last message hidden in the Azoth drawing. All the Latin words contained in the outer ring that connects the rays of transformation spell out a summary of what has taken place. Visit the innermost parts of the earth, right? Well, the term visita interterria terrae Rectificanado inventus occultum lapidum. This means visit the innermost parts of the earth. By setting things right, you will find the hidden stone, the occult, that which is hidden. So now you are on the path to really working the occult. Coagulation uncovers the hidden or the occult, right? The first letter of the 7 Latin words spells out the Hermetic word vitriol. Vitriol is the first of the arcana, which are secret chemicals in a laboratory experiment that summarizes the entire process of transformation. Acidic vitriol is the fiery liquid energy that drives physical and becomes the brain ambrosia or hormone that brings on the materialization of spirit in man or woman. And then the last paragraph, and then we're done. By recognizing and working with the forces of alchemy, anyone can not only tap into the hidden sources of creative power, but fundamentally transform themselves in their life situations. The 7-step emerald formula summarized in the phrase solve et coagula, dissolve and coagulate, which is on the forearm of Baphomet. Now you're also in this process getting the real breakdown of Baphomet. What Baphomet really is, contrary to these idiots who are on the internet and are so spooked out and don't know what Baphomet is. And well, Baphomet. Anyway. Okay, now you're getting the dissolve and coagulate is the driving force behind our physical, psychological, and spiritual lives. And by directly applying it, by beginning the great work within ourselves, not outside, not worshiping something, bowing down to statues, praying to unknowable spiritual beings that exist somewhere in the skies, not starting out there, within ourselves. And starting the great work within ourselves is step 1. Know yourself. Know thyself, and then you can know the gods. You don't really understand Heru, Osiris, Set, Shango, Abatala, Yemaya, Dambala, Widu, Papa Legba. You don't understand any of that shit if you don't understand yourself. So what good is it learning about that when you haven't learned about you first? Pointless, all right? When we do that, by beginning with the great work within ourselves, we can change our realities on all levels, all right? Need I say any more? All right? So that are the 7, those are the 7 operations of alchemy. Study them, master them. Again, the book. Life-transforming book. If you don't have it, study this book. Master it. If you really, really want to know a good direction, as I said last time, and I'm gonna go through more. I'm gonna do a whole nother breakdown on alchemy, symbols of alchemy. I'm gonna go through other aspects of this. I'm gonna do some more material out of this book. But again, this is the Emerald Tablet, Alchemy for Personal Transformation by Dennis William Huck. Right, there's the book. And one thing that caught me, I showed you guys last time, right on the bottom. Chaos Philosophorium, the philosophy of chaos. There you go. Look at that right there. And it's all has its root in primordial chaotic energy. One of the reasons why I changed the name of the channel to this a little while back. It all starts there, people. Knowledge of self. All right, so what I'm going to do, give me 1 minute. I'm now going to go through the chat, look at your questions and all that good stuff. Give me 1 second. If you have some questions, some comments related to what we're talking about, I'm not going to read your comments in between each other for the sake of time. I'm going to skip those, and then we'll go through it. Just give me about 30 seconds. All right. All right. All right, so I'm going to go to the top of the chat and work my way down as I usually do. All right. All right. So peace and greetings to everybody. If I didn't greet you personally or individually, peace and greetings. The gods and the goddesses on this path doing real work, not just reading about it, not just talking about it, but doing real work. And as you can see, this shit is work. All right. Constant work and being consistent at that work. All right. What else? Salt and Light Tarot. Good afternoon. I would assume you're somewhere outside of the United States. BVY, Bevy, greetings from the UK. Well, we appreciate you tuning in from the UK. You guys are about 6 hours ahead of us, so it's wee hours of the morning over there. Yeah, I see earlier, just to reiterate, Raven typed in the Lilith class, November 2nd, 2019. It's a private class. Obviously, due to the content, I don't like to talk about that type of stuff openly. You can, but I like to be careful because I think it's more of a private setting. If you're interested in taking that class and signing up for it, send me an email. Brother Angel, Anya, Figueroa, peace and greetings. Shout out to the whole Black Flame 11 NYC crew. I said earlier, if some of you guys weren't here earlier, remember October 9th is going to be our next video webinar, conference call, whatever you want to call it, where we'll start to move forward and finalize our plans for our next event coming up in New York City. And again, if you are in the New York City area and you would like to get down with the group, again, let me say this with discretion. If you are a person that wants to be part of a group that is doing spiritual work so we all can grow and evolve together individually and spiritually on a collective and individual level, send me an email. If you're looking to be part of a social club or you just want to be nosy, don't waste your time and bother. And if we let you in the group and we see you're not participating or you're not contributing or doing any work, we're going to ask you to just step back. I say all that to say we're all grown adults. We ain't got time for bullshit, fuckery, and nonsense. We have a purpose, and that purpose is for us to grow in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and to evolve on this path. And we're serious about our work and what we do. All right? So if you are in the NYC area and you want to be a part of the Black Flame 11, send me an email. All right? Kathabo Mansaya. Good night. I know you don't mean good night like goodbye. Good evening, like we say in America. Good evening. People in the Caribbean do that too. I remember years ago, my wife was from Jamaica, but people from the Caribbean in general, and most of the women I've been with have been in the Caribbean, they always say good night. Always used to younger. It's backwards, but I guess to them over there too. So I guess it works both ways. All right. What else we got? Bridget Lazara, appreciate the donation. Thank you. Again, not mandatory, but always greatly appreciated. The channel is monetized. You can donate to the channel right here in the chat, or you can go to PayPal and use the email address in the description. Again, a reminder, I see some people have done it more. Appreciate it. Hit the like button. The like button expands the channel. It reaches more people. Appreciate it when you hit the like button, and also subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you do get a notification when I go live or if I upload a video. You can stay up on the content and the information that we're talking about. And as I said, what I do is I just share information. I'm not really concerned whether you agree with it or not, and I don't expect you to agree with everything that I talk about. That would be ridiculous. But I don't waste my time. I did that years ago, as I said before in the past. But now it's information. You do what you want. Love it, like it, hate it. That's your personal business. I couldn't care. All I know is what I'm doing. I'm sound in what I'm doing. I'm confident in what I'm doing, and it works for me. And the only person I need to prove shit to is myself. Same thing with you. The only person you got to prove something to is yourself. Don't be worried about what other people think. Don't get caught up in other people's fuckery. Don't get caught up in other people's ego fest where they want to press you with what they think they know. I don't fuck with none of that stuff. Okay? So it's information, people. Do with it as you see fit. That's what I got to say to that. All right? So Blair said earlier, boy, is that a true statement. Life changes and it's painful. Yes, but, and there was always going to be painful moments, and it is. And I know, Blair, we're going to see you at the conference at the end of next month. I know you're already registered and signed up. You are good to go, and I think it'll be a great experience for you. And for any others that have never been to something we've done here, whether it's a ritual or last year's conference. But yes, it always isn't pleasant. And really all this raising the kundalini, working with the serpent energy, transformation, shadow work, it's not always pleasant, okay? Juju Cakes, love that name. Yep, the only one responsible for my life is myself. You get to the point where you realize no one's coming to save you. Got that shit right. The quicker you realize that, the better off you will be. The helping hand you're looking for is at the end of your arm. The God that you're looking for to bring salvation and save you, all you need to do is look in your closest mirror in your house. Look in the mirror, that's the God you've been searching for. And if you realize that out the gate, you're going to be better off. As I said before, people spend their whole lives something that doesn't exist. People spend their whole lives that there is some fairy tale mythical God, some old man sitting with a long white beard on some throne that is concerned for their well-being and cares about them. People, that's just about as valid as the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs story, Santa Claus and the Elves, Peter Pan, Jack and the Beanstalk. That has just as much validity. It's time to wake up, people. Time to wake up. What else we got? Brother Jay Jizzle, peace, Brother Jack. I got to give you a buzz tomorrow. I was going to today, but I got tied up. Definitely going to give you a buzz tomorrow. And if I forget, hit me up. Still on, hit me up. Yes, earlier, and I believe this was into earlier comment from Alex Rivera. We were talking about death and not really knowing. Let's be real with ourselves. Doesn't make you less of a person. See, sometimes that's where the ego can be damaging. Where I like to call it, we have a lot of teachers that moose. That's a term we used to use years ago in New York. I guess I'm showing my age. I don't think anybody uses that term no more. So I guess I'm showing you my age. There's a term we used to use back in the day, you're moosing. You're full of shit. You're bullshit. That's when we say you're moosing, right? We have a lot of people that moose on certain topics because sometimes their pride and ego gets the best of them. Rather than just saying, I don't know, they pretend like they'll just go on and ramble on about some nonsense to make themselves sound deep and heavy like they know something. You don't really know what happens to you when you die. I don't care what explanation you give, what theory, what concept, what breakdown, whether it's the most technical, scientific, metaphysical concept to the most cultural concept. They're just theories. Guess when you're really going to find out what happens, when it actually happens to you. The one thing that's guaranteed in life that we are all going to meet is death. It's the motivating factor of why we're on the path to becoming what we're trying to become, to learn, to grow in knowledge and wisdom. Again, like I said earlier, how did I get here? Why am I here? Where am I going? What's going to happen to me when I die? What is it like to die physically and transition into the void of the darkness? Well, go back and listen to the video I did Tuesday, The Wisdom of Bowen Watts. She is Black. It talks about the transitional state existence and going back into the void and the darkness. What real void and darkness and what existence is and what it's not. And what you've been disillusioned to think it is and how impactful you think your existence is to the universe and the world. When you find out in the grand scheme of things, it's a small speckle of what we know as existence. It puts things into a lot of perspective. Maybe not what you thought, but remember, one of the goals of an adept is to see things for what they really are. I've mentioned to you guys many times in the past, I work with the symbol of the owl in connection with Santa Muerte. One invocation I utilize all the time. When I look on my Santa Muerte altar and I see the owl, the first thing it incites is give me the inner vision to see like the owl, to see things for what they truly are. An owl has nocturnal visions, has impeccable vision. It sees things in the dark like nobody else can see. How great is that to correlate an owl path? When we go into the darkness and the void, we want to see things for what they really are. Because in that darkness, in that void, in order to connect to that light or intellect, you have to go into the darkness. So when I go into that darkness, let me be aware of that intellect. Let me be able to see it for what it is. That's how I connect with the symbol of the owl in correlation to working with Santa Muerte, the Holy Death. And when you work with the black aspect of Santa Muerte, which bridges the harmony between the objective and the spiritual, or the realm of death and the living, whatever you need to call it to make you happy, it opens and connects you with that energy. And as I said, all these people that talk about necromancy and working with the spirits of the dead, this and that, how I know really working with the death current or the death energy, you see the change, the growth, and the evolution in their spirituality. That's truly working with the death current. It doesn't mean just working with skulls and doing necromancy rituals, and that's beautiful. I love all that stuff. But my whole point is that ritualistic work should be transitioning into your evolution on all these principles that we talked about in alchemy. That's how I know somebody's working with the death current and the spirits of the dead. You see it. You see it function. You see the coagulation in their everyday life, the transitioning into becoming, right? When you become, you are, you exist. You don't ask the questions no more. You become the answers to the questions. That's the difference, people. All right, what else we got? Yeah, and I guess this was earlier from Blair Jones about food and being a vegan and eating natural food. True. Let me read this comment. Let's be real. A lot of food is farm raised anyway. I live in the oyster capital, and you would think they are naturally created. No, they are farm raised and put in the ocean. Yeah. So I brought that up earlier if you came in late, and it's not to knock anybody that's vegan. I was talking about part of your spiritual path. You should have a sensible diet. You should exercise regularly. Don't mean you need to be in the gym and be a psycho, because some people are psychotic with that. You should be getting regular exercise, because that, I was talking about that earlier, into how that can affect calcination, the first step of alchemy, and how that can affect the pineal gland being calcinated, and how part of that can disconnect you from your spiritual awareness being blocked. Sometimes we negate the basics, the physical part of it. So I was talking about, let's be real, out there that get fanatical. Veganism has almost become a religion, and a little out of hand. And as I said before, know your blood type. Your diet usually detects the type of blood type. I'm O positive. I can't be a vegan. I tried it. I was a vegan for about an hour and 45 minutes. That didn't work for me. Most O positive or O blood people, even O negative, are more carnivorous by nature. They need more higher levels of protein. A lot of those tropical diets, and no disrespect to Dr. Sabi, that don't work on O positive people. I mentioned before in the past in previous videos, a brother that I know very well was O positive, went on the Dr. Sabi diet, and he started to get jaundice. He started to get skin discoloration, malnutrition, because he found out after that kicked in and went to the doctor and had full blood work done. He found out he was lacking in protein and a whole bunch of other elements that diet wasn't providing. So remember, diets like that, the Dr. Sabi diet, in all due respect to Dr. Sabi, the Dr. Sabi diet usually works for people that are in Caribbean environments. It's not really productive and works for people, per se, who live in colder climates. Like, look, give me an example. You'll see a lot of people that come from the Caribbean, be it Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, or wherever in the Caribbean, and they move to colder climates like Canada, London, New York, and they develop diabetes. Why? Why is that? You should never, because when you're eating sugarcane, brown sugar, and natural stuff, what happens is once they get introduced into American stuff, white flours, white sugars, things that are bleached white, their bodies don't adapt to it. And then they develop high blood pressure, cholesterol, sugar diabetes, etc. This is a fact. This is do research. Problem. And I don't want to turn this, I'm not going to turn this class into a fucking dietary class, but I'm just trying to say sometimes it's just basic understanding. And we need to understand this. And there are a lot of people that come from the Caribbean and move to places like New York or big cities, cold climates in the Northeast and places like London and Canada, and they develop these diseases when they come here because they've been taken out of their natural diet, put into another habitat. Some adapt because it is part of your nature. Humans will adapt, but sometimes on certain levels, when it comes to diet and health, they tend not to. We're not talking about adapting to the climate. Of course, you're going to adapt to the climate to some level, but when it comes to things like that, there could be a disconnect there. All right, maybe we'll do a class on that. There you go, Patra. I've tried vegan more than once. That ain't me. Put a slice of meat on my plate. I said, I feel you. Like I said. But when you eat meat, you got to take within moderation. Like my body will tell me. And again, I don't eat a lot of beef, but when I do, Burger King and none of that shit. If I have a burger, I will have, grass-fed. What's that other? Can't think of the name of it. Or same thing if I have a steak, I can't. I won't eat anything that's not, none of that shit that they, put in the supermarkets. To the best of your ability, try to eat, less chemically induced, less hormone induced, meat. Sometimes I'll have to have that urge just to feed an aggression. Now remember, you have multiple personalities working through your DNA. And sometimes that's an ancestral spirit that's coming through your DNA that's craving the meat. How do you know that? Have you ever just smelled something and all of a sudden you've craved it? Or out of the blue, you get a craving for something that you don't really even like? That's one of your ancestral DNA personalities coming through your DNA. You're appeasing that personality. That gets into a whole nother story, which I'm not going to go into too much of that now. But your spirit will communicate to you when it's time to have a little bit of beef, turkey, chicken. For the most part, I eat a lot of chicken, turkey, and fish, and occasionally beef here and there. And I try to the best of my ability and knowledge have higher quality. Angus, if I have, that's the word. The other one. I will only eat an Angus hamburger from a good restaurant when I have a craving for a burger. I won't. Like again, Burger King, McDonald's, that's cow. That's like eating rubber. But your spirit will communicate to you. So it doesn't mean eat horrible food every day or take in an over influx of the same foods all the time. Long story short, people, it's common fucking sense. But I'm saying this to all say in a nutshell, not to stay on this too long. People have turned diets and veganism into a fucking religion. I don't want to do that. All right. Yeah, so I'm a vegan thing too. As I said, I was probably a vegan for about an hour and 45 minutes. It's not me. Alex Rivera says, this isn't the path for everyone, but I just got out of training for the Army and it will break you the fuck down. Everything becomes chaos. Don't drink too much of the Kool-Aid and it can really help set you up for success on the left-hand path. Yes, that's a tough thing to go through basic training, military training. It's a good discipline to have though. And like you say, give you awareness to other areas in your life. Alex goes on to say, retain your sense of self, know thyself, and take the tools they give you. Get it, get in, get out. Hey, go get that money with the training you receive for the job you choose. It's a good way to look at it. Good. At least you had a plan or had a perspective. Kiona, Living Magic, hiccups. Appreciate your donation, Kiona. Thank you. Patra has a question here. Can you touch on the Klepothic and how experiencing the 10 dimension spirits change the alchemy of your spirit mind? Thank you. Now, I'm not going to go into all in depth. I mean, it's a good question, but it would take time to go through each Klepothic. There are videos that I have posted up, talked about that, but I'll just give you a quick summarization and we can revisit that again. If you understand, remember, going through the Klepothic or each Klepothic branch, tree is basically the step-by-step process as then you're guided to the Citra Aqua or the other side into the void and darkness by Lilith. So you have what they call the Kabbalistic tree or the Kabbalah tree, which is really dealing with the objective or the physical principles. The Klepothic deals with the other side or the darker sides or the spiritual, the more subjective side. And then it goes even a step further. Now you go from that, the Citra, other side, into the void and the darkness. I always said this about the astral realm. There's more realms outside of the astral realm. People always stop. It goes deeper beyond that. There are many realms. And what opens you up to those many realms is when you master the Klepothic, travel through the Citra Aqua and into the void and the now you are opening yourself up to all of those dimensions and realms, the many of those dimensions and realms. So that is alchemy in itself because it's a transformational or transitional process and change. Okay, the Kabbalah or the Kabbalistic tree is the surface. It's the basic. Really, all the Kabbalah is, as I've said many times before, Hebrew mysticism. And basically, it gives you a more mystical approach to life, to spirit, to nature, to God, the creator, whatever you want to call it. And then it tries through the Sephirots to get you to understand, for lack of a better word, the spiritual abode or the heavens. But when you really look at it, if you're honest with yourself, there's still a lot of religious overtone in the Kabbalah, if you were honest with yourself. And that's why I say really all it is Hebrew mysticism. As we know, the Klepothic tree is the antithesis or the other or the opposite, or what some would label or evil, not because it's bad, only because it's the adverse to what the Kabbalistic tree or the Kabbalah is. And we know it's governed by the two forces, the masculine and feminine energy. The masculine representing Samael / Lucifer, and the feminine representing Lilith, right? And Samael and Lilith is bad or negative or evil to the Kabbalistic tree because those that still have that Hebrew mystical approach to nature, God, and spirituality label Samael and Lilith as a demonic or negative energy, or as God or deity, whatever the fuck they call it. We don't. We look at it as those are steps to uncovering, as it said, and it's all alchemy. We look at it as getting connected with the true essence, our real selves. That's it. So that's the quick breakdown. But I've done videos on it. Go into the archives. I've done videos just on the Klepothic and the demonic realm. I did it a few months ago, but it's something we can maybe revisit down the road. All right, another question by Potson. Light and dark has to be accepted and embraced. True self and mastery. Right, and that's what activating the eye of Lucifer represents. Lucifer is an angel of light and an angel of darkness symbolically, simultaneously. He embodies light and darkness simultaneously. And Lucifer, or light bearer, intellect bearer, that's how we perceive Lucifer as a Luciferian. I had somebody, it was funny. And I don't impress it, but I saw it watching the replay when we had Richard K. Page on this past Saturday. And if you missed that show with author Richard K. Page, Luciferian and author Richard K. Page, check it out. Good show. But somebody had typed in the chat, and I don't know if I saw it. I can't remember if I addressed. I think they typed, so you guys admire Lucifer? I meant to say, that's coming from somebody that looks at Lucifer as external deity. If you're saying it in that sense, absolutely not. Admire, respect, understand, and apply what the concept represents, most definitely. Because it is your goal as a master black magician and adept to embody light and darkness simultaneously. You need the lighter forces, the lighter energies, and the darker energies. And once you work with both of those forces harmoniously and have that harmony within yourselves, you are now a god, a goddess. You are now a black magician or adept. Because left-hand path is by mastering both of those forces. Not all about dark and gloomy, black this and dark that. We understand that's the essence, and that's why it's talked about more. And it's not all light and fluffy bunny and peace and love and, you know, roses and honeysuckle. No. When you become too light, then that becomes a problem. It creates a disharmony within you. So it's about coming up with the right formula that you need to create your path to self-mastery, bridging that gap, creating that harmony, right? All right, so what else we got? John the Baptist Jr., like that name there. Says real shit. Probably just something we were talking about earlier. What else we got? Patrick says, shit, Brother B, everything you've been talking about, I've been experiencing the last few weeks. Well, good. Now you're getting your own personal confirmation. That's good. This is a good question by, hopefully I'm not butchering your name, Obadiah Desavieux. I was talking about Lilith earlier. How can you be sure she was Lilith who came because I had the same experience? That's a very good question. I obviously couldn't speak completely on your experience. I knew because I was doing work at the time, the awareness, and it was very easy for me to decipher the experience that I was going through, and it was clear, crystal clear, beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was Lilith. That was my experience. Now, there are other dark or energies that can come and push, that can be confused for Lilith. And one, for an example, can be Hecate. Very similar. Hecate also works with the dragon or the draconian energy or current, works with the Klepothic and the demonic realm. And remember, she is the master source. She has a trifold manifestation. She abodes the as above, the earthly realm, and the void and the darkness. Now, her energy is very similar to Lilith. And I know people that have had experiences describe, and through divination and working with clients and doing readings, we were able to decipher through that when they're unsure that it was actually sometimes Hecate. So it could be. Now, I don't know all the particulars to your experience, so I can't really speak on something I know. But if if we were talking and maybe had a dialogue, we would be able to narrow it down. But that's a very good question. There are other similar energies that can come through that, because they vibrate and resonate with the same frequency, as can confuse them. Or I don't want to use the word confuse. It can be likened to another archetype of deity. So that's the best thing I can tell you on that. Not sure if that helps you, but it's a very good question. Another question by Obadiah. Sidebar. Can someone awaken your Kundalini, or is it a self-mission? Well, you can do Kundalini work with a partner. For an example, in the Vampire Magic book by Father Sebastian, there's a Kundalini exercise, raising the Kundalini. It can be done with a partner in sex magic, and it can be done, it's both. It just depends on the technique you're using. In essence, it's self, because all work is personal. All work starts with the self. So in that aspect, it is self. But can that work be done, and can the awakening process also be done on some level with somebody else assisting in that? Yes. And then that could be done, again, I'm using the example of a partner with sex magic, most definitely. Blast says I need to move to the East Coast. Laugh out loud. Silvana Evande. Very, very interesting name. Not sure where you're from. Hi there. Greetings. All right. I don't see any other questions. I think I've come to the bottom of the chat. I think I got to most of your questions. I don't know if anybody else has any more questions. I'll give you a minute or so, only because if not, I'm going to wrap this puppy up. While I'm waiting for possible questions, just to wrap up again, announcements tomorrow night. For those that are coming to the ritual of Arachne, the spider goddess, 8 o'clock, be on time. That's tomorrow night right here in Fort Lauderdale. Reminder for the Lilith class, the private class on Lilith, which will be Saturday, November 2nd, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you would like to sign up for that class, send me an email, canoom19@gmail.com. It's right there in the subscription box. So send me an email for that. If you are interested in a consultation or a spiritual reading, send me an email. Include in that email the days and times you are available and the time zone you're in. And we will schedule a time that works best for both of us. Also, the Journey of the Black Adept Conference #2, reminder, October 25th to the 27th. 3-day event of different workshops, classes, presentations, rituals, and just overall good vibing together time. It's going to be a fun time for those that are coming. I'm looking forward to it. We're getting closer to it. If you're interested in registering for that and attending that, send me an email. If you are interested in presenting at that event, send me an email on an occult or left-hand path topic, and spaces are very limited right now. I think we might have 2 left based on the time frame I'm looking at. So hit me up on that. Don't forget to hit the like button, please. It expands the channel, so hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you get notifications. All right? So let's see. Question here by Matthew Watson, and probably make this the last one. Any good books to help me get better decoding dreams? I've made contact with Lilith in my dreams and want to know what things to look for. There's a good Lilith by Bal Cadman, Lilith by Asenath Mason. As far as a specific book on dream work, I can't think of one offhand. There's much information scattered in a lot of these. Dream working is a very integral part of the Draconian path. So check out Michael Kelly's books, Apophis. That's a really good book. That also gets into that type of stuff. That's some of the basics I can push at. But there's a bunch of stuff out there. I would start in those areas. All right. All right. I do not see anything else. Going once, going twice, 3 times later. Yeah, I'm clowning. Guess that's it. So again, moving forward. Oh, and again, a reminder. I said in the beginning, as far as upcoming videos and classes, I will remind everybody once again for the final time on Tuesday, a reminder, there will not be a show on Thursday. What is that? 3rd, I believe. Is that right? Yeah. Thursday, October 3rd, and there will not be a show on Tuesday, October 8th. Okay? Mark that down. I will not be doing a live show again on Thursday, October 3rd, and Tuesday, October 8th, due to the fact that I will be traveling and some other personal stuff I have to do. Possibly I might squeeze, maybe, I can't guarantee it, 50-50 chance I could possibly squeeze something in between there. Not sure. If the time presents itself, I will. Good to see you in here, Sister Sabrina. I got to give you a call. Been a minute. Definitely, if you're still here, I got to definitely give you a buzz. So that's the 3rd and the 8th. I will be looking soon at some time going into next month. People like Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum back on, Bal Cadman, Father Sebastian, Richard K. Page, trying to get a lot of these people back on. I like to bring them on every couple of months because I feel like they're good foundational guests and always have a lot to contribute. All right. So that's stuff to look forward, moving forward. I'll look into that, And then again, I'm also to address, I'm getting an email, when's the next full online class session, the full 6 to 8 week session? Again, I haven't talked about it in a while. I'm going to do that every January and June. I'm going to keep it broken up, do it twice a year. So if you're interested in signing up for a full online session, I'll start pumping that out there probably around the holidays. And I'm looking to start that in mid to late January. And then I'll do it again in mid to late June. I'm going to keep that twice a year, which are the full online sessions, which is great. That goes in a lot of depth. We cover a lot of material. And trust me, you get a lot out of that class. for your personal growth. So that'll be in January and June. So the next full online session, 6 to 8 week session, will be in January, late January. So look for that upcoming. And that's it, people. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I know I don't say it all the time. I'd like to, again, thanks and appreciation for supporting the channel. Without the support of the channel and viewers, there would be. So thanks for that. We will see everybody on Tuesday night. I don't know, something connected, continue this talk on alchemy. I think it's important. But we'll tackle another area of this. We're going to go into a whole nother area. So I'll help you with understanding shadow work, dark alchemy, understanding what it is to become like a Baphomet. As I said, talk about it. Don't talk about it, be about it. All right? Peace out to all the gods and goddesses. Oh, one quick reminder. I forgot also, Sunday night, this Sunday, you'll see the advertisement on the Instagram. Myself and Brother Ravananu, we're going to be doing a fun show, but a very knowledgeable show on hip-hop culture and, the occult and the left-hand path. Sports. If you're into sports and hip-hop, we're really going to go in hard on hip-hop, though. The culture of it. We've done shows like this in the past, one like this in a long time. So this will be a more fun, entertaining, but very knowledgeable, intellectual show. You'll get a lot out of it. I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be fun. So we're going to change it up a little bit, do something a little more fun. You'll see the link on my page for it. You can also send him an email. I have the link. You can actually send me an email. I can send you the link also directly. You'll see it also on his Instagram. You'll see it on my Instagram. But if you would like a link to that class Sunday night, because he's emailed it to me, send me an email and I could forward the link to you for that class Sunday. Other than that, we will see everybody on Tuesday night. Peace.